The Ilari were a race of thinkers, builders, and creators, their civilization built upon a foundation of intricate crystalline cities and vast neural lattice networks. Their unique form of cognition, often compared to the human concept of autism, granted them a laser-like focus on detail, logic, and pattern recognition. While other species relied on emotion and impulsivity, the Ilari embraced a methodical existence. Every thought, every decision, and every construction was executed with impeccable precision. Their cities shimmered like elaborate fractals in the light of binary suns, and every structure echoed with the quiet hum of advanced technology and ancient wisdom. For eons, the Ilari contributed quietly to the galactic community. Their innovations revolutionized space travel, stabilized economies, and even cured diseases across multiple worlds. Yet, despite their invaluable contributions, they never sought political power or military might. Their strength lay in their intellect and the delicate balance of their society, a society built on order and calm, where emotions were structured rather than wild. This peace was shattered when the Zarn descended. The Zarn, apex predators forged from a blend of organic evolution and cybernetic enhancement, cared little for diplomacy or understanding. Their culture revolved around conquest, their existence defined by the thrill of the hunt and the devastation of those they deemed weak. To them, the Ilari were nothing more than an exquisite challenge, a prize to be claimed. With their sleek, predatory warships and a doctrine of absolute domination, the Zarn began a merciless assault. Crystalline spires, symbols of the Ilari's artistry and intellect, shattered like fragile glass under relentless plasma bombardments. The once bright cities, hubs of scientific progress and cultural achievement, were reduced to smoldering ruins. Binary suns that had once bathed these magnificent structures in radiant light were obscured by vast clouds of debris and ash. In their desperation, the Ilari attempted every recourse. Diplomatic overtures filled with logic and reason, strategic retreats planned down to the millisecond, and even appeals to the ancient code stored deep within their neural lattices. Nothing could stem the tide. Galactic factions that had once welcomed Ilari science now recoiled. Fear gripped the hearts of neighboring empires, and the once familiar exchange of ideas turned to suspicion and isolation. Trade routes were severed, treaties revoked, and alliances disintegrated under the weight of terror. Even the mighty Arkan Dominion, renowned for its military prowess, withdrew its support, cowering behind walls of nebulae and forgotten promises. The galaxy, paralyzed by the dread of a similar fate, turned its back on the Ilari. In the shadow of inevitable extinction, the Ilari did not succumb to despair. Instead, they retreated deep into hidden sanctuaries and began to record every moment, each loss, every whisper of hope, and the final, desperate strategies encoded with clinical precision. They knew that in the grand tapestry of the universe, even extinction could become a lesson, a final message to those who would dare forget the price of neglecting wisdom. Within the quiet halls of their underground archives, High Mind Lareth and her council of elders compiled detailed simulations of the battle, analyzing every tactic the Zarn employed. In their structured, almost serene approach to catastrophe, they maintained a flicker of hope, that even in the face of annihilation, remembrance might spark salvation. And so, as the Ilari prepared for what could be their final hour, their minds were not clouded by emotion, but rather, they orchestrated their resistance with cold, calculated determination. They understood that if they were to survive, or at least, if their legacy were to continue, they needed to send a message that resonated beyond the boundaries of conventional communication. Thus began a chain of events that would ripple through the galaxy for millennia to come. On the last refuge of the Ilari, the moon known as Niratel pulsed with the soft glow of bioluminescent code, its surface alive with the rhythmic patterns of an ancient civilization clinging to survival. Here, in the hidden sanctuary beneath crystalline canyons and echoing caverns, High Mind Lareth initiated Protocol Zero, a final, desperate act crafted from countless cycles of contemplation and analysis. With meticulous care, she activated the ancient data cores buried deep within Niratel's heart. These relics, remnants of a long-forgotten era, contained encrypted knowledge about a species spoken of in hushed tones. The Terrans. The Ilari. Terrans were both myth and mystery, legends of a time when the galaxy was a more brutal place, when wars were fought with raw, unbridled fury and heroes were forged in the fires of conflict. According to scattered records, the Terrans had vanished into obscurity after a cataclysmic war that reshaped the cosmos. Their technology was rumored to be so advanced, it bordered on magical, hidden away until the moment of utter need. The Ilari believed that if there was even a chance for salvation, it lay with these mysterious warriors of old. The signal was simple yet profound, a carefully crafted message, embedded within layers of mathematical complexity and poetic code. It read, "This is Narration of the Ilari. We request aid. We face extinction. We remember. Do you?" The message was sent far beyond the known regions of space, carried on frequencies that even the most advanced Zarn technology could intercept. And intercept they did. The Zarn, confident in their relentless campaign of eradication, scoffed at the plea. Their guttural machine tongues mocked the desperate call with contempt, replying in crude digital distortion, "Call your ghosts. We will erase them too." Yet, even as the Zarn celebrated their impending victory, deep within the forgotten corners of the galaxy, something stirred. Hidden listening posts, ancient relics of a time before the current order, began to awaken. In facilities long dormant and cloaked in the mists of time, dormant systems flickered back to life. It was as if the signal had resonated with a power older than the stars themselves. Within the silent corridors of these secret outposts, dormant AI systems and forgotten custodians of knowledge activated one by one. The archives of the Terrans, meticulously encoded in chaotic yet beautiful patterns, began to hum with activity. Data streams coalesced, and the long-dormant technology stirred from its slumber. The Ilari's call for help was not falling on deaf ears. For 3 agonizing days, the silence prevailed. Every moment that passed felt like an eternity for the Ilari hidden on Narration. The quiet void between hope and despair was filled only by the hum of ancient circuits and the steady beat of a dying civilization's heart. But then, in the midst of that silent void, a fracture appeared, a rip in the fabric of space and time that signaled a profound shift. From the depths of a collapsed dimension, a vast fleet emerged. They were unlike any sight the Ilari had ever witnessed, silent, imposing, and enigmatic. Every ship in the fleet bore a single, unmistakable symbol, a silver helix encircling a blue flame. These were the Terrans returned, reborn from the legends, reawakened in a moment of desperate need. In that instant, hope was rekindled. The ancient guardians, thought lost to time, had come to answer the call. Their arrival marked a turning point, a promise that even in the darkest hour, there existed a power that could challenge the forces of annihilation. The message had been heard, and the galaxy was about to witness a rebirth of forgotten might. The arrival of the Terran fleet rippled across the galaxy like a tidal wave of destiny. For 3 long days, the silence had been oppressive, a stifling void in which the Ilari held their breath, their crystalline eyes watching, waiting for the promised salvation. Then, without warning, the stillness broke. In the darkness of space, something extraordinary occurred. A fracture appeared, as if the very fabric of reality was being torn apart. Not a bend, not a warp, but an actual break, a ripple of energy that signaled the return of legends. From this fracture, emerging like specters from the past, came the Terran fleet. They materialized in the void, vast and silent, their form a blend of advanced technology and enigmatic design. Every ship, from the smallest interceptor to the flagship dreadnought, was emblazoned with the iconic silver helix and blue flame, a symbol that transcended myth and history. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. For the Ilari, this moment was the realization of hope. For the Zarn, it was a harbinger of doom. The first indication of this new force came from a forgotten mining colony on the fringes of the Oxtari expanse. What had once been a lonely outpost became the stage for a cosmic spectacle as a Terran dreadnought, its size rivaling that of a continent, emerged silently from the void. The colony's inhabitants, long accustomed to hardship and isolation, could hardly believe their eyes. The dreadnought was a masterpiece of dark, angular lines and glowing accents, a vessel that seemed to meld technology and artistry in a way that defied conventional design. Aboard the command ship Oblivion's Edge, Admiral John Smith observed the scene with a mix of calm determination and steely resolve. His eyes, aglow with the memories of past battles and the weight of responsibility, scanned the starry void as Terran ships repositioned themselves with military precision. Unlike the Zarn's chaotic assault, the Terran maneuvers were a carefully orchestrated ballet of destruction. Every movement was calculated, every strategy laid out in layers of contingency plans and centuries-old doctrines. Below the command deck, in the heart of the ship's strategic center, officers worked in synchronized unison, feeding real-time data into the central command. The atmosphere was one of focused intensity, no word of panic was uttered. Instead, the silence was filled with the quiet hum of advanced systems and the steady click of consoles, a symphony of order against the backdrop of chaos. Admiral Smith activated a secure channel to his AI companion, Seraph 1, whose analytical voice broke through the calm. All systems are green. Awaiting your command, Admiral. Smith's response was measured and resolute. Target the Zarn fleets. Engage with full force and precision. No mercy. We are here to reclaim what was lost. As the orders were transmitted across the Terran fleet, distant enemy formations began to register the signal. The Zarn, who had grown arrogant in their presumed victory, now found themselves facing an adversary who moved not on impulse, but with the meticulous certainty of ancient warriors. The Terrans' arrival signaled not just a shift in power but the resurgence of a forgotten legacy, a promise that the legacy of the Terrans would not be extinguished. In that moment, the Ilari, hidden in their sanctuaries, watched with a mixture of hope and fear. Their minds, always precise and observant, absorbed every detail of the unfolding conflict. Patterns emerged in the chaos, a dance of strategy and countermeasure that promised both salvation and retribution. For the first time in many cycles, the Ilari dared to believe that their voices, long silenced by the indifference of a fearful galaxy, had been heard. And so, as the Terran fleet maneuvered into position, every ship a herald of vengeance, the stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the cosmic order. The silence of those 3 long days had given way to the thunder of retribution, a symphony of light, metal, and determination that echoed across the void. The turning point came swiftly and without mercy. With the Terran fleet fully deployed, the cosmic battlefield erupted into a maelstrom of energy and fury. The Zarn, who had ruled the skies with ruthless efficiency, found themselves facing an enemy whose weapons were unlike anything they had ever encountered. It began with the first volley, a single, devastating discharge from the flagship of the Terran Armada, the Oblivion's Edge. In an instant, a command station the size of a moon was reduced to nothing more than a memory, its existence unwritten as if it had never been. The Terran weaponry, honed over millennia and refined through battles lost and won, was a marvel of quantum technology and lethal precision. Energy beams laced with quantum destabilizers rained down upon enemy vessels, dissolving their very molecular structure. The once mighty shields of the Zarn warships, designed to deflect cosmic catastrophes, were effortlessly bypassed by Terran ordnance. It was not mere destruction, it was an erasure, a systematic undoing of an entire species' military might. Throughout the battleground, Terran fighters engaged in a ballet of war. Small, agile craft darted between enemy formations, their movements a blend of calculated aggression and elegant precision. Each pilot, many enhanced with cybernetic implants and neural linkages to their ship's AI, executed maneuvers that were both beautiful and lethal. They struck at weak points with surgical precision, ensuring that every assault was both efficient and devastating. On board the flagship, Admiral John Smith directed the onslaught with a calm determination that belied the chaos unfolding outside. Every command was issued with the confidence of a warrior who knew the cost of failure. His eyes, reflecting both the light of distant stars and the glow of battle, remained fixed on the enemy lines. Data streamed in from every sensor, every monitor relaying the progress of their assault. It was a symphony of destruction, orchestrated by a mind that had seen the rise and fall of empires. In the midst of the chaos, Terran ground forces were deployed to secure key positions on decimated worlds. Clad in dark, advanced armor, these infantry units moved with a single-minded purpose. Their weapons, capable of generating localized gravitational anomalies, turned the very ground into a battlefield of shifting terrain. Each step they took was deliberate, a calculated move in a war that was as much about reclaiming lost honor as it was about survival. Back on Narration, the surviving Ilari watched the carnage with a mixture of sorrow and awe. Their crystalline cities lay in ruins, yet in the heart of destruction, there was a glimmer of something new, a promise that even in the darkest hours, a reckoning was at hand. For the Ilari, whose lives had been defined by logic and precision, the violence of the Terran assault was a brutal reminder of the chaos that unchecked power could wreak. And yet, it was also a reminder of hope, the hope that the galaxy might still be redeemed by those who dared to remember. As the Terran forces advanced, every Zarn ship and station fell like dominoes. What had begun as an unyielding assault quickly transformed into an unchallenged annihilation. The Terran fleet, with its flawless coordination and relentless precision, proved to be not just a weapon of war, but a force of destiny. Judgment Day had arrived, and with it, the final erasure of the Zarn threat. In the wake of annihilation, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. The Terran fleet, now the sole arbiter of cosmic power, had not remained to claim dominion over the liberated worlds. Instead, as if following an ancient, unspoken edict, they withdrew from the battlefield. In the ruins of shattered Zarn installations and in the devastated remains of countless worlds, a new order began to take shape, one born of necessity, remorse, and the sobering reality of what silence could cost. On Narration, Admiral John Smith landed alone amid the scattered debris and silent memorials of battle. The surface, illuminated by the soft glow of bioluminescent code and intermingled with the harsh scars of conflict, bore witness to a quiet procession. The Ilari, those who had survived the onslaught, emerged from their hidden sanctuaries. Their crystalline forms shimmered with a sorrowful brilliance, and their eyes, windows into minds of unparalleled clarity, flickered with hope and mourning alike. High-mind Lareth, adorned in robes that resonated with the subtle glow of encoded memories, approached the Terran commander. Her voice, measured and resonant, carried the weight of an entire civilization's history. "You, remembered," she whispered, each syllable laden with the bittersweet knowledge of loss and survival. In that moment, beneath the shattered remnants of their once great civilization, the Ilari and the Terrans shared a silent communion, one defined not by words, but by the mutual recognition of what had been sacrificed and what had been reclaimed. Admiral John Smith, ever the embodiment of stoic resolve, knelt before her. "We do not forget. Nor do we forgive," he replied quietly, his tone neither defiant nor humble but simply measured. The exchange was not one of subservience, it was a meeting of ancient souls who had seen the worst that the cosmos could offer and who now recognized that sometimes, only a force born of both legend and necessity could right the scales of destiny. In a solemn ceremony beneath the cold light of distant stars, the Ilari presented the Terrans with a crystal shard, a repository of their history, encapsulated memories, and the very essence of their people. This gift was more than a token of gratitude, it was a covenant, a promise that even in the face of despair, there would be a record, a reminder of those who dared to stand against oblivion. Admiral Smith accepted the shard with a reverence that belied his hardened exterior. "Your kind sees beauty in what others ignore," he said. "It is that vision which guides us even in our darkest hours." His words were not an acceptance of a mantle of guardianship, they were a quiet acknowledgement of shared responsibility. In that moment, the promise of retribution and protection intertwined with the silent plea of a people who had been all but erased. As the Terran fleet regrouped and began preparations for departure, whispers spread across the liberated systems. Across the Galactic council chambers and hidden enclaves, leaders and common folk alike murmured of a reckoning, a promise of vigilance that would echo through the ages. The Terrans had not stayed to rebuild, they had left a message, a final word etched into the collective memory of the cosmos. With one last look at the ravaged lands, Admiral Smith boarded the flagship. The Terran fleet then moved as a single, untraceable entity, slipping away into the cosmic void as quietly as they had arrived. Their departure was marked not by celebration, but by a deep, resonant understanding that the balance of power had been irrevocably altered. The reckoning was complete, yet its implications would continue to reverberate through every corner of the galaxy. In the aftermath of the Terran intervention, the galaxy's political landscape was forever transformed. Realizing that fear and power alone could not forge a lasting peace, the surviving species convened on the neutral world of Dayari Prime, a planet renowned for its ancient temples, sprawling vistas, and a history of diplomatic resolution. Here, representatives from every major faction, from the stoic Arkan Dominion to the enigmatic Veilborn, gathered to deliberate on the future of the cosmos. The summit was unlike any assembly in recorded history. Delegates arrived in ornate starships, each carrying the insignia of their long-lost empires. The air was thick with anticipation, and every word spoken resonated with the gravity of survival. In a grand chamber carved out of living stone and bathed in soft, diffused light, the assembly began its deliberations with a single, unifying request: will you lead? Will you protect us from the darkness? The words, simple yet profound, hung in the air. They were not just a call for military protection, but a cry for guidance, a plea for the re-establishment of balance in a galaxy that had been pushed to the brink of chaos. As the delegates spoke of treaties, ancient prophecies, and shared histories, one figure materialized on the central holoscreen: Admiral John Smith. His projection was dignified and imposing, a testament to the Terran legacy of power tempered by the wisdom of ages past. "Listen well," Smith began, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. "We are not here to become your saviors or to dictate your future. We are here as a reminder of what silence and inaction have cost you all." His gaze swept across the assembly, meeting the eyes of leaders whose faces bore the marks of sorrow, hope, and the scars of conflict. The fate of the Ilari, the cost of your indifference, should never be forgotten. One by one, delegates voiced their fears and their hopes. A representative from the Tiresian matriarchy, her expression fierce yet vulnerable, asked, "Then what do you propose we do now? Who will stand against the next threat?" The room fell into a heavy silence, each being contemplating the enormity of the question. Smith's response was measured, a soft smile, tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Prepare. Strengthen your defenses, and do not wait for salvation to come. Remember what has been lost, and honor it by never repeating history." As the summit concluded, the delegates committed to a future built on vigilance and unity. Treaties were redrafted, alliances rekindled, and for the first time in centuries, the idea of mutual guardianship took root. The Terran intervention had been a catalyst, not for domination, but for introspection, a call to arms against complacency and an appeal for responsibility. In the days that followed, the galaxy buzzed with whispered stories of the Terrans, their sudden appearance, their decisive strike, and the quiet authority with which they had spoken. It was a legacy that transcended mere military might. It was a declaration that the cosmos, scarred by past inaction, would never again be allowed to drift into silence. And while many looked to the Terrans as potential rulers, Admiral Smith's final message was clear: until next time centuries passed, and the legacy of that fateful intervention became the stuff of legend. The galaxy, once a battleground of ambition and fear, slowly transitioned into a new era defined by cautious diplomacy and restrained power. Empires, scarred by the weight of their past misdeeds, now strove to build societies founded on mutual respect and the memory of what had nearly been lost. In the wake of the Terrans' departure, the Ilari, now recovering from their near extinction, became revered not just as scholars and innovators but as living repositories of history and wisdom. Their intricate neural lattices were sought after as models for conflict resolution and advanced communication. In every corner of the galaxy, children learned the story of the Terrans, their swift return from the mists of myth, their brutal yet precise reclamation of order, and their final words that echoed like a promise, "Until next time." In the ruins of ancient Zarn strongholds, now silent and reclaimed by nature, messages were inscribed for future generations. Among them, on a crumbling wall in a forgotten temple, were the words, "Remember what silence cost you." These inscriptions served as eternal reminders that power unchecked leads to inevitable downfall, and that vigilance was the only safeguard against oblivion. The Terran legacy became both an urban myth and a practical doctrine. Although the Terrans had never accepted the mantle of guardianship, their intervention had irrevocably changed the balance of power. Galactic leaders, in council halls and secret forums alike, invoked their example as a lesson in humility and preparedness. Statues were erected in honor of Admiral John Smith, whose quiet smile and unwavering resolve became symbolic of the Terran way, a balance between ferocity and measured restraint. Murals depicting the cosmic battle adorned the walls of newly built academies across the galaxy. His final message, delivered at the summit on Dayari Prime, became a mantra recited by military cadets and diplomats alike: "Prepare for the day when silence is not an option." In the corridors of time, the echoes of that moment continued to reverberate. The Terran fleet may have vanished into the void, but their impact was permanent, a silent guardian watching over a galaxy that had learned its lesson through fire and loss. Even as new threats loomed on the horizon and the stars bore witness to the rise and fall of civilizations, the memory of that intervention remained a guiding light. And so, as the galaxy moved ever forward, every ruler, every warrior, and every scholar was left with one enduring question: where are the Terrans? For some, the answer lay in quiet myth and half-remembered legends. For others, it was a promise of retribution, a silent warning that the ancient guardians were never truly gone. In the silence of the void, the whispered refrain echoed across time: "Until next time."